History remembers the greats, the Washingtons, the Lincolns, the Roosevelts, but what of the forgotten? The men who walked the halls of power not by design, but by fate's cruel twist. Among them stands John Tyler, America's most unusual president, a man who was never elected to the highest office, yet shaped its destiny in ways few could have imagined. April 4th, 1841, the United States is in mourning. President William Henry Harrison, the hero of Tippecanoe, has died just 31 days into his term. The nation is stunned. The Constitution is unclear, and waiting in the shadows is Vice President John Tyler, a man few believed would ever hold real power. But Tyler did not hesitate. Within hours, he declared himself not merely acting president, but the rightful president. No oath, no precedent, just sheer will. The cabinet was furious. The press called him his Accidency, but Tyler stood firm, and in that moment, he changed the presidency forever. This was just the beginning. John Tyler's presidency would become one of the most controversial, bizarre, and consequential in American history, and yet most have forgotten his name. Until now, so who was John Tyler? How did an unremarkable Virginia lawyer become the first vice president to inherit the presidency? And why does his legacy remain so deeply controversial? The answers lie in the shadows of history, waiting to be uncovered. Before he was the accidental president, John Tyler was a man shaped by rebellion. Born into Virginia's elite in 1790, he was groomed for politics from birth. Yet from the very beginning, he defied expectations. At just 21 years old, he was elected to the Virginia legislature. By 26, he was in Congress. But this was no ordinary rising star. Tyler was a man of contradictions, a strict constitutionalist who despised federal power, a slaveholder who spoke of liberty, a Democrat who would later betray his own party. His defining moment came in 1836, when he was elected vice president alongside William Henry Harrison, a role meant to be quiet, ceremonial. But fate had other plans. Harrison's death 1 month later wasn't just a tragedy, it was a constitutional earthquake. The founding fathers had never clarified. Was the vice president truly the new president, or just a placeholder? The cabinet demanded Tyler submit to their collective rule. His response, "I am the president." With those 4 words, John Tyler didn't just claim power, he rewrote American history. But this was only the first battle. What came next would fracture his party, spark impeachment threats, and set the stage for one of the most tumultuous presidencies America had ever seen. John Tyler now occupied the White House, but Washington refused to accept him. His own cabinet turned against him. His party disowned him. And Congress? They were coming for his head. For the first time in American history, impeachment charges were drafted against a sitting president. His crime? Defying the will of the Whig Party that had elected him. But Tyler would not bend. Twice, he vetoed the Whigs' national banking bills. Twice, they tried to destroy him. Henry Clay, the most powerful man in Congress, roared, "Tyler dares resist the will of the people." But the so-called president without a party had a weapon they never expected, the Constitution itself. Night after night, Tyler wrote, legal arguments so precise they silenced his enemies. When Congress tried to override his vetoes, they failed. When they threatened impeachment, it collapsed. The man they called his Accidency had outplayed them all, but his victory came at a cost. The Whigs excommunicated him, Democrats distrusted him, and as 1844 approached, Tyler faced a terrible truth. He might be the first and last president of his own party, the Tyler Party. John Tyler was a president without a party, without allies, but not without ambition. And in the spring of 1844, he set in motion a plan so audacious it would either redeem his presidency or destroy it. While Congress slept, Tyler negotiated in secret. Texas, an independent republic claimed by Mexico, coveted by expansionists, would be brought into the Union by any means necessary. His cabinet warned him this could mean war with Mexico. Henry Clay thundered that it would split the nation over slavery. Even his own Secretary of State resigned in protest. But Tyler had one last card to play. On his final day in office, March 3rd, 1845, with just hours left as president, Tyler signed the congressional resolution for Texas annexation. The deed was done. His successor, James K. Polk, would reap the glory, but the gamble was Tyler's. The Mexican-American War followed, the slavery crisis deepened, and John Tyler, the accidental president, had forever altered the map and the fate of the United States. History should have forgotten John Tyler by 1861, a one-term president rejected by his own people, living out his days in quiet disgrace. But in his final act, the man who once swore to preserve the Union would commit an unthinkable betrayal. At the age of 71, older than the United States itself, John Tyler took a seat in the Confederate Congress, the only U.S. president to ever commit treason against against his country. The same man who had strengthened the presidency now worked to destroy the nation it governed. The same Virginian who once debated Henry Clay now conspired with Jefferson Davis. And when he died in 1862, the United States government refused to acknowledge his passing. No presidential mourning, no flags at half-staff, just a single haunting distinction. John Tyler, the president erased by history. Even in death, he remained divided, buried under a Confederate flag, his name carved beside rebel soldiers, while the nation he once led fought to survive. John Tyler was buried as a traitor, yet his ghost still walks the halls of American power. In ways both profound and peculiar, the most forgotten president never truly left us. His precedent that a vice president becomes president, not just a caretaker, was finally cemented in 1967 as the 25th Amendment. Every presidential succession since, it rests on Tyler's stubborn gamble in 1841. But the strangest twist? The man whose own government ignored his death still has living grandchildren. Thanks to Tyler fathering children into his 70s, 2 of his grandsons are alive today. When they were born in the 1920s, their grandfather had been dead for 60 years, and yet had once dined with George Washington's nephews. Think on that. In 2024, there are men walking this earth who had a grandfather born while Thomas Jefferson was president. The threads of history stretch far thinner than we imagine. So was John Tyler a stubborn hero who saved presidential succession? A traitor who betrayed his oath? Or simply a man who, through sheer longevity, became history's most improbable bridge between eras? In the darkest year of the Civil War, the Confederacy made a desperate play. They sent their most famous recruit to Europe. Their mission? Convince Britain to join their cause. Their ambassador? The only U.S. president who had ever betrayed his country. But fate intervened. Tyler, the man who had joined the rebellion, died before reaching London, and with him died the South's best chance at foreign recognition. Here's the cruel irony. Tyler's death may have saved the Union he abandoned. Without their presidential trump card, Confederate diplomats failed to sway Britain, and when Queen Victoria maintained neutrality, the Confederacy's fate was sealed. So what do we make of John Tyler, the man who established presidential succession but betrayed his office? Who expanded America's borders but nearly tore it apart? Who lies forgotten yet still shapes our world? History is not carved in marble, it's written in shadows and paradoxes. And perhaps that's why we must remember even the most inconvenient presidents, for in their flaws, their failures, their unexpected legacies, we see ourselves. This concludes our series, but the conversation continues. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was Tyler a villain, a tragic figure, or something more complex? And remember, history is never as simple as it seems. Thank you.